What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports Dude Hine Show. Today is August 12th, 2021. In this episode, I am joined by Tony Tucker of the Warzone Sports Network. How you doing today, Tony?
I'm doing great, Jordan. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for joining the show and everything. We have lots of topics to discuss, pretty much all topics from the NFL sports-wise. Just a couple of non-sports topics we'll get into towards the end of the show. Before we kind of start talking about, different, newsworthy headlines, you were actually able to kind of, go to the Chargers Fanfest thing, this past week. Can you kind of talk about your experience of that and some of the players who you were able to see who you think might end up being really good this year?
Definitely. So, just a quick little backstory. I grew up a huge Packers fan in Upper Michigan, and I loved the Green Bay Packers. My first introduction was with Don Majkowski, the Magic Man, maybe the all-time mullet champion, used to wear the eye black. It was great. And then we got Brett Favre, and he was my favorite entertainer, favorite player. Loved being there. And with the whole Aaron Rodgers situation, I hated the Packers. I was done. I became a Jets fan for a year and then a Vikings fan for 2 years. And then I've been without a team. And last year I started watching the Chargers. My brother-in-law is a season ticket holder. And I was like, this is fun. But I kept laughing at how bad, fortunate they were, whether it was Anthony Lynn and the play calling and all that, or the field goal kicking. And so I just kind of like, the more I'm getting into the sports stuff over at Warzone, I'm like, you know what? I really want to have a football team. And I was watching the Chargers this offseason. I love their draft. I live here in LA. I was like, you know what? Let's support the local team. Let's dive in fully, buying jerseys and shirts and just like following the team on a regular basis. The Chargers Fanfest was absolutely a fantastic show. They had the blue and white scrimmage out there, and Herbert's dropping dimes all over the place. I think Jared Cook, for anybody watching this who plays fantasy football, he's got a real chance. He's familiar with the offense. He looked great out there. Caught some nice back shoulder fades from Herbert. Nice little touchdown over the middle during the scrimmage. He looked great. Also, the third-round rookie selection wide receiver Josh Palmer looked fantastic. Routes looked really crisp, and he looked really fast, made a couple of nice plays. Mike Williams looked strong out there and on the same page with Herbert. And, of course, Keenan Allen was just putting on a show. Like, he's just so quick in and out of his breaks that it looked fantastic. But on the defensive side of the ball, there's an outside linebacker, Chris Rumph. He's not very big, but man, was this guy getting around the edge. He had like 3 touch sacks against the first team offensive line. And the offensive line, those are some big boys, some good blockers. So I was very pleased to see that. They had all the smoke shows and the things, the big loud bangs going off when they were scoring touchdowns. Really great environment. Bolt up, Charger Nation, ready to go. Fan base, bigger than people. People always making fun. Oh, hey, congratulations, Tony. You're Chargers fan number 12. Get out of here with that nonsense.
I talked about going to the Bengals kind of like fan fest type thing a couple weeks ago. But normally they have it to where like you can meet players and stuff like that. But with the coronavirus, you weren't able to. So I did not end up going. So, like, was that kind of like the same situation at the Chargers? Like, you weren't allowed to meet anybody, stuff like that, due to the coronavirus?
Yeah, there was no meet and greets. There was some former players in the building, Marcellus Wiley and Sean Merriman and stuff like that. So, I think in a regular year, definitely that's something that they would do. Maybe even giving out a little more merch. But everybody's just kind of respecting the fact that we're getting back to being in a normal environment, being able to gather again, hoping that people are sort of following guidelines, whatever, atmosphere you're in. I think you probably should have still gone just to be around other Bengals. That's the cool thing, is that there was no haters because there was an opposing team. So, like, everybody was just excited and cheering when good plays were happening. I will say this, the field goal kicking is still going to be a problem. I'm going to be bald. I'm going to rip my hair out with whoever the field goal kicker is. I have no idea. I'm going to buy a wishing well and just chuck pennies every time they line up for a field goal. I'm just going to be throwing pennies in the wishing well, hoping they make kicks all season long.
And I mean, a similar situation kind of happened a couple years ago with the Bengals. Mike Nugent was with us. He cost us 5 or 6 games just within the first 10 weeks. And you mentioned Chris Rumph. He was one of my favorite draft prospects, one of the under the radar draft prospects. I was really hoping the Bengals would get him. He actually was drafted earlier than I thought he would. And, I mean, to me, you really look at the Chargers. I really feel that they had the best pure talent pick in the entire draft, best value pick in getting Rashawn Slater in the first round. And the Corey Linsley signing, to me, honestly, is easily the best signing in free agency, and it's not even close. Because really look at it. The Chargers, I know Bengal fans won't admit it. I'll be one of the few to admit it. The Chargers had a far worse offensive line last season than the Bengals did. And the fact that you get Rashawn Slater, who in my opinion was actually the best offensive lineman, not Penei Sewell, because Slater can play tackle and guard. Then you have Corey Linsley, who he was not just the best center in the NFL last season. You can honestly make a case he was the best pure offensive lineman last year too. I'm really, really excited for the Chargers this season, especially with Herbert. I mean, I think they're definitely a playoff contender. I'm super, super excited, but kind of nervous for their matchup against the Bengals as we get halfway through the season and everything.
Yeah, another thing that they did have a really good draft this year. That was something I was excited to see. Asante Samuel Jr. has looked fantastic because Mike on the Mike Sports, who's also at the Warzone Sports Network, went over to training camp with Joe, who's a Raider hater. Joe did a good job of keeping his Raider fandom in, but he looked really good. Derwin James is back. That's another big piece. Hopefully, he stays out there, stays healthy and strong, because I think he's a game changer in the middle of that defense. But yeah, I just think there's a lot of optimism, and that is what every fan should have at the beginning of the year. You should want to head in thinking, you as a Bengals fan, look at all the weapons at the disposal of Burrow this year. I have the Bengals at 6 wins, and I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but there's just the defensive holes that need to be there and the questions on the offensive line. But I think they're going to be in a lot of close games, and they're going to be entertaining. Like that's great.
I feel like keep looking at the schedule. I keep going back to anywhere to 7 to 9. But if we get less than 7, I'm going to go. I'm going to go to Cincinnati and permanently, fire Zach Taylor myself. If we get less than 7 wins, I will lose my crap. Like I've said this from the very beginning. I mean, especially with the extra game, to me, like the extra game kind of gives you more, like you have to win another one. And especially, let's say the Bengals get 6 wins. The final 3 games of our schedule, I don't remember which ones are away and home, but we play the Chiefs, Ravens, and Browns. We're lucky if we win one of those games. And honestly, if we would win one of those games, it would be against the Browns because that's the last game. So they maybe would be resting their starters for a bye. But if we, end the season on a 3-game losing streak and have just 6 wins, that's going to be the most depressing season, honestly. I know it sounds crazy considering how much hope we have and young talent, but the fact, Zach Taylor has 6 wins in 2 years, and he has 1 road victory in 2 years. I mean, I do not think he's nearly as good as anybody expected. I made some huge episode last year talking about it. I mean, the facts I brought up, I don't remember what they were, but they was just crazy how many facts, and you look at different things. He was on pace. There was a certain time he was on pace. He was nearly identical at a winning percentage. I believe his first 24 games or something like that. He nearly had the same amount of wins his first 24 games as Hugh Jackson was as a head coach. Yeah, I mean, Taylor, to me, I am not sold on him at all. 6 wins. I want to start a riot personally. It's going to suck. But I actually have that big Bengals episode tonight. Going to be talking about, the preseason and everything. And you're kind of talking about, our first topic, Michael Thomas, with the Saints. He's going to be expected to miss a couple weeks, due to a foot injury. There's rumors that he might be, traded. So what are your kind of thoughts on the whole, Michael Thomas situation?
This one is perplexing because there was like rumors that he was kind of trying to stick it to the team. He ignored their calls. He didn't want to get surgery. There's bad blood or whatever it is. And then Michael Thomas comes out and says like, oh, you can't fire back because you need to protect the reputation of the organization, but they can damage your character. That's not a verbatim quote, but it's something to that effect. My whole thing is that like, if you are getting paid millions of dollars and you think that you could need surgery, or you just don't even check in with your employer for like 3 months at a time, or like I just find it really hard to believe that you could be in a situation where your employer doesn't call you once, but they have $100-some million invested in you as a human being. I just don't believe that they didn't reach out once. But I think that more of this story will develop and come out. It sucks for the Saints. It sucks for whoever's going to be the starting quarterback to not have a player like that. I think that I still need some more information, but I'm siding with the organization on this one. I just find it really hard to believe that they didn't reach out to him, that a medical staff, they didn't say, hey, we need treatment, we need evaluation, we need to know, like, let's get this process going. So I want to hear his side of the story. It doesn't sound like he's going to share it, but it just is like, it's messy, and it sucks for fantasy football.
I completely agree, and it's like one of those things. It's like with Thomas, it's like you're just now getting surgery, and you're going to miss time in the regular season. The fact that you supposedly weren't told that you need surgery, the Saints obviously had to tell you that you needed surgery. I don't get why you did not get surgery in March or April or something like that, because look at the Saints when Michael Thomas isn't on the field. They're a completely different team. Drew Brees was not able to find as much success. Teddy Bridgewater was not nearly as good. Whoever was the quarterback of the Saints when Thomas isn't playing, they're completely different. And the fact that the Saints don't tell Thomas, supposedly, they're not going to not want to see him on the field. They're going to want him to see him on the field as much as they possibly can, especially with Drew Brees no longer on the team. The fact that you're getting a quarterback in, Jameis Winston, who I am ecstatic to see as the New Orleans quarterback. But this does not make any sense. I feel like there's more to the story we haven't heard yet, and the possibility of him getting traded, to me, I feel it's a little blown out of proportion. I mean, especially you look at like the Aaron Rodgers situation, and to a degree, I think it was blown out of proportion. Russell Wilson was completely blown out of proportion. I feel like this is another one of those situations where we're just kind of trying to find a major headline, possible trade candidate as we get close to the preseason and the regular season. Because around training camp, to me, you really look at training camp and the draft. Those are the 2 times of the year where there is no more overreacting than training camp. A guy might be okay, and one day at camp, and all of a sudden he's going to be great. The draft the same way. The fact that we get these storylines around the training camp type thing, there's a lot more buzz, and people tend to overreact. I don't really think Thomas will get traded, but I really feel like this situation, there's a lot more things we haven't heard than what we have heard.
Yeah, it is a weird situation. The trade stuff to me feels like he really wants to. I know. What a jerk. Why would he want to trade him to the Ravens? Come on.
The Ravens, I literally did an episode earlier today. The Ravens are where wide receivers go to die. It's true. You can have Thomas on the Ravens. They're still not going to win a Super Bowl, and they're still not going to win a division.
To me, Mike Thomas would feel like a really good fit for Lamar Jackson, though, just because of his work in the intermediate passing game. So I think that would be a nice receiver for Lamar Jackson. But Mike Thomas came in, and when you get to have a Hall of Fame all-time great quarterback as your introduction to the league, and then you're looking around being like, oh, Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston, you're kind of like, yeah, I do want to go to Seattle. I do want to go to Kansas City. I want to go to Green. You want to go play with somebody is going to be able to get you the football. And I think there's a little bit of concern that he might look like a bust, but he's also the outburst last year where he punched somebody in the face on his teammate, on his own team. There is something going on there. I'm curious to see how this whole thing shakes out. The Saints are going to be a mess this year, I believe.
I don't think they're going to be as bad as what people think. And Taysom Hill, I mean, there is no reason he should ever be starting a game as a quarterback. He's not a quarterback. I would say he's the most comparable quarterback we've seen to Tim Tebow. But I would say, honestly, probably worse when Tebow's time back in 2011, 12, whenever that was. But to me, Jameis Winston, I have said this over and over again. Anytime Jameis Winston is mentioned, I'll always say this. We're going to look back in 2019, Jameis Winston, 5-10 years from now, will be one of the most underrated seasons in NFL history. And I might sound crazy, but the fact that he threw for over 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, he did have the 30 picks, but that was with a brand new head coach and a brand new offense coordinator. I know, stats aren't everything, but you really look at those games. He had 30 picks, but I believe over 10 of those were drops. And to me, I feel like Winston with Sean Payton has potential, but if Michael Thomas doesn't play, depending how long he's out or with that whole situation, I feel like, not a lot of people are giving Winston a chance. But if you take Thomas out of the equation for a little bit, I mean, Winston's pretty much going to be, he's going to fail more than likely, I would say.
Well, so real quick, I just want to agree with you on Jameis Winston. I do think that he's, he gets a bad rap because you bring in Bruce Arians, who's a guy who likes to play risky football. He likes to chuck the ball downfield and make things, big plays, make things happen. You're going to have more interceptions than not, like you said, first year of an offense. As far as the current roster goes, I think that the floor is a little bit safer with Taysom Hill. I think you know what it's going to be. I think it's heavy Latavius Murray, Alvin Kamara running the ball, using tight ends, running Taysom Hill. I think that can win games. We saw it win with Tebow, and they can play defense. When I say that it's going to be a mess, I'm not saying that they can't win games. What I'm saying is that you went from Drew Brees to just giant question marks. It's going to be messy. I do believe that Sean Payton, I think the defense is still pretty strong without really knowing the full roster. I don't think there was a bunch of departures from there. But yeah, I would tend to lean towards it being a really kind of chaotic without your Hall of Fame quarterback there. Yeah,
looking at the Saints schedule, I would say probably maybe 7, 8, maybe 9 wins, depending, I mean, they play in the NFC South, one of the more underrated divisions, in the league. And, Mike said, Thomas is the only elite wide receiver that would actually benefit from Jackson. Now, that I would agree with, but to me still, I don't think Joe Morley, thanks for stopping by. But, Winston can be average again, but the question is, who's he going to throw to? Mike asked that. It's a good point. And talking about Thomas, and he mentioned Jackson, going to be the next topic. I already kind of talked about this in this week's episode, earlier this week, but I kind of want to talk about it again. Know your thoughts. With Josh Allen's huge extension, 6-year extension worth $43 million per year. To me, I know lots of people are comparing Lamar Jackson to Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield to Josh Allen. They should be paid similar money. Absolutely not. In my opinion, Josh Allen is, out of the three, easily has the most potential. And it's not even, in my opinion, not even a debatable topic. You look at Josh Allen, looking at all the quarterbacks in the NFL, I think you can honestly make a case he has the most potential of any single starting quarterback right now in the NFL. I know lots of people will complain that, Jackson has not had that top receiver like Allen had this past season with Stephon Diggs. That is true, but I was mentioning earlier today, you look at the Ravens, they are always going to be that pass first team, that run first team. They're never going to be a team who beats you in the pass game. Regardless of the winning or losing, they're going to be rushing the ball. And you look at Lamar Jackson's, playoff game in this past year and the year prior. Lamar Jackson has not. He won the MVP. He had a sensational season, but when it comes to the playoffs, he's a completely different quarterback. And with Josh Allen, he played pretty decent in the playoffs and was able to get a playoff win, and so was Baker Mayfield. Jackson even got a playoff win, but in that game against the Titans, he played horrendous. You mentioned, defense stepping up at times. That was the exact situation for the Ravens. And in my opinion, I don't think Jackson should be paid more than 35 unless he can actually play great in the playoff game this season. Because to me, his playoff woes are not being talked about enough. And as it goes for Mayfield, the max I'm paying Mayfield is absolutely 35, not a penny over. Because you look at him, this might be bold. If Joe Burrow was the quarterback of the Browns last season, I honestly believe Cleveland would have ended up winning the AFC North. In my opinion, I think Burrow is already better than Mayfield. Not trying to be biased, but the fact that Mayfield is the most overhyped game manager in the NFL today, and it's not even close. Jarvis Landry, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, Odell Beckham. You have so many nice tight ends and a great offensive line as well. And the fact that you still could not win your division, despite the Steelers, despite some of their wins, they were not as good as people thought they were. And the Steelers really sucking towards the end of the season. Mayfield, he'll throw for 215 yards a game, and people will call him an MVP candidate. That literally happened in the Thursday night game against the Bengals. He played okay, and people are talking about how great he played. Mayfield, to me, unless he can take the Browns to the Super Bowl this season, I don't think 35. Well, I think 35 would be the max, and that goes for Jackson. To me, I would say 35 is the max too, unless he can actually perform great in a playoff game or even good in the playoff game, which is something we've never even seen before with Jackson.
Whew. Okay, I'm on the opposite side of the fence on both of these quarterbacks because I think we're about to see. I'm going to start with Baker Mayfield. We're about to see him in year 2 with Stefanski, who is really great. And I don't like the argument when you fault somebody for being part of an organization that is being run well. I don't want to get confused and call the Cleveland Browns a good organization because I don't necessarily believe that. But I believe that they have been good and headed in the right direction over the last 18 to 24 months. I think Baker Mayfield is very accurate. And I think that if you have running backs that people have to respect, then he's going to be able to work nicely in the play action game and get the ball to his receivers and weapons. Now they have a lot of people to pay, and they're gonna lose weapons. But we've already seen him excel with Rashad Higgins and Donovan People-Jones. Like Njoku might want to be gone, but they have Hooper at tight end. Like they'll be fine there. You keep the offensive line stacked in front of him. You can play winning football. Baker also played really good football down the stretch. There, again, I wouldn't pay him the kind of money that I'm paying Josh Allen's and Patrick Mahomes. No, I wouldn't. But I still think he deserves a contract extension. I think he's going to win a lot of games in the NFL. I don't like to make comparisons based on size. People will go like, oh, well, Drew Brees is one of a kind, right? Like Russell Wilson, one of a kind. I believe that you can get to being one of a kind. But the one thing that I really love about Cleveland is that they're sort of playing that old school football. They're going to be a run first team and move off of there. So I'll leave it there with the Browns. Let me go over to Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, we don't know if he can be a good passer. I don't know that he'll ever be a great passer, but we don't know that he can be a good passer when you're throwing to Willie Snead and whoever else that he had out there, only Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews. So, I think that you have to have the opportunity to have some sort of a threat at receiver. Nobody is giving the kind of respect to the outside guys that they should be. That frees up the middle for his favorite target, Mark Andrews. You also want to be able to have guys that can work kind of the short passing game on the outside, outside the numbers. They haven't had that. I'm really bummed about the Rashad Bateman injury that he's having groin surgery. He's going to be out until September. It's at the end of September. He's already going to miss all of camp. That ruins timing, cohesion with Jackson. I'm a believer that Jackson can be a good enough passer. I don't think Jackson has the longevity of some of these other quarterbacks because his strongest ability will be his legs. When his legs start to go and he has to be a guy who stands in the pocket and wings it, I don't think that you can be on the hook. But if you're telling me I'm going to give this guy $40+ million for the next 5 years, yeah, I'm giving him whatever he wants because I think he can be there, can be a team that can compete for a Super Bowl. I think the defense is okay, not great, and I want to see Tylan Wallace, Rashad Bateman. Hopefully Sammy Watkins could have some health. Could he please just string together a 14, 15-game season and be out there? We could see what Sammy Watkins can do when he's healthy. So I'm on the other side of both of these guys. I know they're in your division. I will agree with you. I think that Burrow showed a lot of things to be optimistic and happy about there. They just need to get an offensive line going in front of that guy.
The thing about Jackson to me, and I was doing a Madden simulation between the Bengals and Ravens earlier today video, and I kept going to the facts. If you can stop the run on him, regardless, if you stop the run against Jackson, I would say 8 times out of 10 at least you're going to win. I was earlier in the year, the first time the Bengals met the Ravens, the Bengals held Jackson to just 3 rushing yards. Jackson did not have a good day by any means, but the defense bailed him out again. The score, I believe, was 28-3. Burrow, you mentioned that the offensive line sucks. I think it got sacked 8 or 6 times or something like that. And it's the fact, if you stop the run with Jackson, the odds of you winning are very, very good. And, you mentioned he might not be in the league as long with his legs compared to other quarterbacks like these, I would say more so pocket passers. But you look at him, he can run the ball tremendously. I would say he's arguably the best athlete as a quarterback right now. If it's not him, I would say it's probably Josh Allen. But you look at Jackson, he can rush from your legs as much as you want. But if you stop the run against Jackson, to me, I don't think he can win those big games passing wise. To me, I think that separates him as a quarterback to an athlete. Athlete wise, he's phenomenal, but actual quarterback, I don't think he's as great as what people think. Because him passing, I don't trust him paying over him $40 million to a guy who honestly I do not trust specifically throwing the ball to try to win me a Super Bowl. Rushing wise, I think he's fantastic. But when you're telling me you have to put the hands and Lamar Jackson to pass to come back from behind, I mean, I was watching a game just a couple of weeks ago. They were down by 10, and instead of passing 15, 20-yard passes, Jackson's scrambling and try to pick up a run. I do not trust Jackson's arm. I'm not trying to sound like I hate Jackson. I mean, I don't like him, and I'm a Bengal fan. I should not like my rivals quarterbacks. But to me, with Jackson, it's like I can trust his legs, but when it comes to passing, I feel like that's completely different. And with Mayfield, I don't know. I feel like if he can get to them to the Super Bowl, I feel like maybe more than $35 million I would maybe be comfortable with. But until I see, because I mean, all the talent there with Cleveland, they have potential to easily be in the Super Bowl, in my opinion. They have a top 3 roster. There's no excuse for Mayfield. Let's say if they have a early first-round exit or something like that, or I feel like that has a huge implication on his future contract. And I feel like with both of these quarterbacks, it has whatever their contract extensions are, it has a major indication on, it has a major impact on how will they perform in the postseason, what their extensions will end up being.
Real quick, the Browns are my favorites to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl this year, so I'm all in on that. And I'll give a quick analogy about Lamar Jackson. I love pizza. Everybody loves pizza. You can eat pizza on a bagel. You can eat pizza anytime. Pizza bagel, right? But you can't. It's much better if you have all of the proper ingredients. And Lamar Jackson right now has been a pizza bagel in the NFL, where it's good, it's fine, I'll eat it. But you have to have all the ingredients, be able to make a nice crust, have a nice pizza. And I think that we're finally going to get to see what a complete, delicious pizza he can be when they actually have receiving weapons. That's all I'm saying, is that we're seeing an incomplete Lamar Jackson. We're evaluating him on all of this stuff without having all of the ingredients in the pie. And even adequate ingredients. It doesn't have to be the best, but even just adequate. He didn't have any of that. It's the same thing with the Bengals. It's hard to evaluate the Bengals because they don't have an offensive line. I question, the defense once in a while. If they get those things, everybody's going to be much higher. If the Bengals offensive line comes out and they're number 1, the Bengals might win 9 or 10 games this year. That's the honest truth. With a good offensive line, they might win 9 or 10 games. But we don't expect that. the Ravens are still winning 11, 12 games with guys that play the wide receiver position that might not even be in the NFL in a year. And they're still winning 11, 12 games, and it's because of that guy. You give him some guys, it could be a 14-win team and pressing for the Super Bowl.
This comment by F. Johnson, the Bengals are the best-ranked organization in the NFL. That is not further away from the truth. For 32 teams in the NFL, the Bengals are probably dead last. But that is definitely, I would say, my worst take I've ever seen on the show. But
I have a question for you real quick. Did you see the reports about Jamar Chase was having trouble getting separation?
That's one of those things that are completely blown out of proportion with the only time the Bengals are ever talked about is if it's in a bad way. The offensive lines, okay, for instance, the offensive line sucked the first day or two of training camp, but since then it's been improving drastically. And the offensive line sucks. Jesse Bates, for an example, contract extension, as of right now, they do not have one. And people are talking about it's not going to get extended. And with Chase, to me, he's not played in a game for over a year and a half. I don't get how people would expect him to be this wide receiver we've never seen before. You kind of expect a struggle. It's kind of like a similar situation with Zach Wilson with the Jets. Playing in a completely different BYU to the Jets, with Chase not playing a year and a half to playing against in the NFL. To me, regardless how good you are, that's not going to be easy to do. Coming back, playing football again. To me, I'm not really worried about it at all. And with you mentioned the offense. Well, going back to Jackson real quick, to me, it's just very interesting, and I just feel like the Ravens' offense is specifically ran for Lamar Jackson and by him. You cannot have any other quarterback in the NFL work Baltimore's offense like Jackson. How many running backs they have, all the amazing blocking tight ends they have, the nice offensive line and everything. I want to say something really, really crazy. I honestly think it will happen. But Jackson, to me, I mentioned the playoff games. It's like he disappears. He looks like Andy Dalton in the playoffs. And to me, I do not trust Jackson in the playoffs. Honestly, I don't see Jackson winning a Super Bowl with the Ravens. Burrow will win a Super Bowl with the Bengals before Jackson will with the Ravens. I know I sound crazy. I honestly think it might happen. But because Jackson's inconsistency in the playoffs, and you look at him, you've already mentioned with the legs, you don't know how long he's going to be able to play. With the passing, I just don't see it. And then you look, I'm not trying to be biased, but then you look at the Bengals. I feel like I'm not saying we're going to win the Super Bowl this year. That's not what I'm saying at all. But maybe in 3 years, 4 years. But you look at their offensive line, I feel like it's slightly better than people expect. But then you have Burrow, Mixon, Boyd, Chase, Higgins. In my opinion, Boyd is definitely one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL. Chase was the best rookie, without question, receiver. Higgins was underrated. And with the Ravens, to me, I just feel like as time goes on, teams will figure out Jackson more. And I just do not trust his passing ability, because once teams figure out his rushing ability, like they have somewhat this past season, once he just has to rely on the pass, I do not trust him at all, and especially in the postseason.
Yeah, we're going to see. We're definitely going to see. And I'm with Mike on this last comment here about T. Higgins. I was out shopping the other day, and there was a T. Higgins jersey, and I almost got it because he's one of my favorite players. I love T. Higgins.
And this might be, might not. It's a very unpopular opinion. I would say I was talking to somebody the other day. I would say my favorite Bengal is not Chase, Higgins, or Burrow. It's actually probably Tyler Boyd. I've met him a couple of times. He's a really, really nice guy. I think he's one of the better receivers in the league. And I'm really, really excited, for the Bengals this season. I feel like we have potential to surprise some people, but at the same time, I was looking at a prediction post a couple of days ago. I was going to try to make a video about it. Somebody had the Bengals going 2-15. To me, that person should not be allowed to post anything again. That's pretty frustrating. And the same person, I'm trying to think, they had the Vikings going 4-13, which to me is just laughable and makes absolutely no sense. But kind of talking about some more topics. Let's see here. Deshaun Watson. It was announced he was 4th on the depth chart on the Houston Texans roster. What are your thoughts on this whole situation?
This is a mess. I don't want to get into the off the field stuff, but it's kind of there. Like, we don't know what's going on. He doesn't know what's going on. Is he allowed to play? Is he on the exempt list? Is he tradable? Other teams can't. Like, you can't inquire without knowing what's going on, because you're not going to mortgage your future for a player that you would love to have, let's say the Philadelphia Eagles with all their draft picks, if they don't know whether or not he could be in jail or if he could just be kicked out of the league, for, defamation of the shield, just degrading the shield, whatever the right word is there. It's the Texans have fallen so far. Like, I remember on Monday Night Football when they walked in against the Patriots in their Letterman jackets and they had their chests out and they were like the new hot team. This team is so close to being a Super Bowl contender like a few years in a row. And then they get Deshaun Watson. It's like, and then he blows his knee out in training camp 1 year or whatever. And that season goes down the tubes. And then he comes back and he's sensational and they're good and they get in the playoffs and they're heading in the right direction. Now they have traded away one of the best receivers in the NFL for a guy who's backing up Mark Ingram, who couldn't beat out a rookie in Baltimore. Like, that's how bad they have gone in the last 12 to 18 months. It is insane what's happened. I hope that these things about Deshaun Watson aren't true and that we can see him back on a football field soon, because he's very fun to watch. He's electric. And I would like to see what he could do with a good football team. We already saw what he did with it. People are saying the Texans might win like 7-8 games. They won 4 games last year with Deshaun Watson. You think the answer is not having him to win more games? Like, that to me is insane. This situation is weird to me, but as of right now, whether or not, I don't know if things are true or not, I'm hoping that Deshaun Watson is back on the field, and it's not in a Texans uniform. I would like to see him somewhere else.
Yeah, it's crazy because, the Texans, from 2011 to 2016, I would say, the Texans were really, really good. You mentioned they were a playoff team. They even beat the Bengals twice in the playoffs, but, at that time, that was pretty easy to do, and they needed a quarterback. They just needed one quarterback. They're kind of like how the Washington is right now. They had a great team, but once they get their quarterback, they're definitely a Super Bowl contender. They get him, like you mentioned, the injury, and it's like they had the playoff game against the Bills, and they ended up winning that game, and then they had a huge lead against the Chiefs. They ended up blowing that game, and I believe that was the last time they were in the playoffs. And the DeAndre Hopkins trade, I really feel like that's going to be one of the worst trades in NFL history. You look, even going back to the Laramie Tunsil trade. They didn't have first round picks recently due to the trade with Miami, which was very questionable because getting so many top picks for a top offensive tackle, I don't feel like that's a great idea, but not a horrible idea. You had Hopkins, you had Watt and Watson, but trading all that just for one specific player, and it's not like it's somebody it's not like it's a linebacker or this next top wide receiver or somebody like that, somebody who's going to be your best player. The fact that you really traded to get a guy who I don't really think that was a good trade. Then this whole, allegations and everything like that. The I said the Bengals are the worst ran organization. I still feel that they are, but with this whole thing with the Texans, I feel like they're definitely it's a competitive race. But with Watson, I feel like it's just very interesting. I feel like there's a chance he might not play this year. I feel like there's going to be at some point he won't play due to those allegations until maybe we figure out something. But I do not see him playing another snap for the Texans. It just does not make any sense. He wants to be traded. The Texans don't want to trade him, but have him 4th on the roster. Just does not make any sense at all. It really shows how horrible an organization they are. When you look at DeAndre Hopkins, he's kind of posted some cryptic tweets about the Texans, about how they're not really, a good organization. Andre Johnson, one of the better wide receivers we've seen at the 2000s, one of the most nicest receivers in the NFL. I had a chance to meet him. He was a really, really nice guy. He even, basically blasted the Texans organization about how poorly they were ran and everything. And this is one of those situations that's just absolutely crazy. A year ago, you not think about, because you look around the NFL, some of the top respected quarterbacks, in my opinion, some of the first ones that come to mind are Russell Wilson and Andy Dalton. And Deshaun Watson is just right there with him. And then all this happens. It's just crazy. And I really feel like this future of Deshaun Watson is very interesting. I will say, regardless of those allegations are true or not true or anything else, there's a 0% chance Watson plays a snap for the Texans. I would say his days are pretty much over, but it's just a matter of when.
Yeah, he's showing up to save $50,000 a day or $50,000 a week, whatever the number is. I don't know. They're trying to embarrass him. They're putting him at the depth chart on 4. They're not dressing him for preseason games. Obviously, he's not a part of their future. I think with the Laramie Tunsil thing, it was an attempt to be good, because if I can remember correctly, I think Watson was one of the most sacked quarterbacks, and they were like, "Hey, we need to get a tackle in here to keep our future of our franchise upright." So I think the move was actually done in the right way. It just, in hindsight, ended up being bad. Had he solidified the offensive line and been there, we would look back on that as being a great trade. It's just that in hindsight, it's not. The Hopkins one, to me, is the one where it's like, I don't know what you're doing. You could pair Hopkins and Watson together for a decade and have, Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison. Like, what are you doing? Whatever.
I feel like when it's all said and done, that trade is definitely going to be up there with the Raiders-Bengals trade, trading a first and second round pick to get Palmer. And that wasn't even necessary. I mean, Palmer was not even going to play for us. I mean, that Hopkins trading like a second or third round pick, and David Johnson, who's not even a top 20 running back in the league, is just absolutely mind-boggling, especially the fact that running back is without a doubt the easiest position to replace in the NFL. You have undrafted free agents come in, and they'll be absolute stars. I mean, for an example, you're a Chargers fan. Eckler was an undrafted free agent out of a super, super small school, one of the better running backs in the league. I mean, that draft class was just sensational on the talented running backs. You can use any round pick you want for a running back. You don't got to trade to get one for a top 5, trade to get one and trade away could have been your best receiver in franchise history and a top 5 receiver in the NFL today. It's very interesting. You kind of mentioned, Deshaun Watson not going to play at all in preseason. It kind of goes to the next topic. There's some top players to watch and some preseason games. So who are some players you're kind of really interested in looking at this weekend for some of the preseason games?
I'm gonna go non-Chargers on this one. And I think for me, it's always more based around like fantasy football, and I want to see how they might be used. I think Travis Etienne Jr. Is somebody that I want to see how he's used if he gets out there to play at all. I am also looking forward to seeing the Broncos QB situation, because I have some investments in that offense in fantasy football, and they announced that Drew Lock is going to start the first game and Teddy Bridgewater will start the second game. But then what if Drew Lock comes out on the first drive, leads them down for a score, and then leads him to a field goal, and all of a sudden the Broncos have 10 points with Lock in a preseason game, and the momentum can swing. We've already kind of talked about that. And then just also like I'm gonna go Colts. I really like Michael Pittman Jr. Like to see him get out there, and if he can have success with a backup, and even just look good, maybe catch a ball, get open. Even if he doesn't get a good ball thrown to him, but he looks sharp out there, I think that's something that that'll have my eye on.
To me, one of the top people that come to mind. Well, you mentioned already Drew Lock. To me, I'm super interested in Drew Lock. I feel like people are giving up on him way, way, way too early. I know I might be unpopular opinion, he started 18 games. I believe he has 6 or 7 wins. But at the same time, you look at those 18 games, at least 2 or 3 of those different games he actually did not even fully play because he left the game injured. But you look at that young talent around him. And I mean, Javonte Williams, Noah Fant, Albert O, another nice tight end. I mean, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, so many. You can honestly make a case the Broncos have the best pure skill players, young skill players in the NFL right now. And part of that reason was, Drew Lock. People already, I sound crazy. Last year, I actually picked him to be my MVP candidate because I wanted to be bold, and I thought it could happen the way he played his rookie year. And to me, very interesting. He's worked out with Peyton Manning in the offseason. I feel like he's going to prove some of the doubters wrong. I'm very interested in Locke. A couple other ones. I really, really want to see Zach Wilson. Lots of people are already complaining about Zach Wilson. He's struggling, which that's the one horrible, horrible thing about playing, for a New York-based team. I mean, you could be brushing your teeth, and within an hour, you're going to be in the headlines. You're brushing your teeth, or just something stupid. Like, if you're in New York, you're going to be in the headlines no matter what you do. And with Wilson, I mean, lots of people talked about his early struggles. I mean, playing in BYU, you're not playing the biggest competition by any means. They're playing in the preseason game. I'm very interested in, especially to me, I believe they signed Josh Johnson. And up until they signed him, they did not have a single quarterback who has played NFL regular season snap. To me, that's a huge issue. I really feel like early quarterbacks who go extremely early should always have a veteran quarterback with them to help guide them throughout the NFL, give them tips and different things like that. I really want to see Justin Fields because depending how he plays, if he plays lights out, who knows? Maybe we end up seeing him start week 1 instead of Andy Dalton. Jacob Eason for the Colts, I'm interested in that because we don't know how long Wentz is out. There was a report that came out, I believe, yesterday that Wentz is ahead of schedule, but there is a chance he might not make week 1. I believe they play the Seahawks, and if Eason plays against the Seahawks, I would be really interested in that because I feel he was a very underrated quarterback coming out of the draft. Urban Meyer said there's a quarterback competition between Minshew, and that's a lot of BS. But I'm still really interested to see Lawrence. Mainly more so quarterbacks.
Yeah, you're having a little bit of an audio connection, at least for me. I agree with all those. I'm just excited for football to be back. The Trey Lance situation is another one that's interesting to me because I think that's the real job that could be won. I think Andy Dalton is going to get the chance to be the starter for the Bears. And if you look at the beginning of the schedule, it's probably beneficial to let him take some of those really tough games at the beginning of the year too. But Trey Lance could win the job. There's just a lot like the rookie running backs that are out here. We got to see Harris get some runs, so maybe we'll get to see Javonte Williams and Michael Carter and stuff like that. But yeah, I would definitely agree the Jets not having a vet was something that I was unaware of until the other day when I was talking to Turn Up the Jets, and he's like, yeah, they just signed Josh Johnson or whatever. I'm like, oof, that's not a good situation. But yeah, I'm just excited for preseason football to be back and overreact to all the stuff that happens in preseason football, really.
Can you hear me all right now?
Yeah, I can.
Overreact. The Browns and the Lions, I believe both of them were undefeated in the preseason, and both of them ended up going 0-16. So the preseason really does not mean much of anything. It's just, trying to get your jobs. And one other player to me is Patrick Jones, an edge rusher for the Vikings. He was my favorite defensive player in the draft, and I really, really wanted the Bengals to get him. But it wasn't for the Bengals. I was really hoping he would kind of go to the Vikings because, Mike Zimmer was with us years ago. He's a defensive guru. I'm interested to see Patrick Jones and with Minnesota. And kind of completely switching gears, there's a couple of non-sports topics. There was a news yesterday, the TV show Jeopardy. It's been on for so many years. Mike Richards, he's worked for Jeopardy for a long time. He's been the, part-time host. It was actually announced that he's going to be the new permanent host of Jeopardy. So what are your kind of thoughts on this whole topic?
I don't know Mike Richards at all. I've never seen him. I've never seen him host an episode. I thought that a lot of the temporary hosts that they put in were kind of like awkward and like trying to get a good feel for the position. But the show is so iconic. Now it's just sort of like, it's just Jeopardy, right? Like Alex Trebek was just as big as the show, right? It was his creation. He had been there for 30, 40 years or whatever. But now Jeopardy is like a staple. Like when I was a kid, it was the only show that was allowed to be on with my grandma in like at dinner time. It was it. We weren't allowed to watch TV, but if we had sort of that dinner that ran into Jeopardy time, she would leave Jeopardy on. And I would always try to be able to like guess the questions. I never really would get anything right. Now that I'm a little bit older, if I'll catch a replay on that'll come on after the news or something out here, or like if I have it on that channel in Jeopardy, I can start to get a few questions. It's a little more fun. But it's just a staple. Like, I don't necessarily know that the host is there. It really makes a difference. It's like when I listen to Dodger games. You can't replace Vin Scully. Like it's an undoable task. It doesn't matter who they put in. I don't care if it was Aaron Rodgers, which I just think that would have been more like publicity. But Jeopardy doesn't need publicity. It's there. It's bread. It's milk. Like it's just a part of our everyday life that you're gonna love it no matter what. So I wish Mike the best. That's a huge opportunity to try and fill. Ultimately, I don't think it will really matter. Like good for Mike. Congratulations. Don't screw it up, Mr. Richards.
Personally, I don't really like this at all. To me, it's like you look at all the remakes now, and like there'll be different things. The shows will be remade and movies will be remade, and it kind of ruins the legacy of the originals. And to me, I know you still have Jeopardy, but Jeopardy is just not the same without Alex Trebek. And to me, honestly, I'm all for Jeopardy honestly ending, because to me, Alex Trebek was there from the very beginning, and once he shockingly passed away, to me, there's like you can't possibly replace him. He's been the only guy on there for forever, literally since it started. I would say in my opinion, the only possible people I would be fine with to be the new permanent host would be if Alex Trebek had any kids or anything like that. So why not carry the legacy down to like his kids or something else? But to me, I just really do not like this, because it's like, just 3 or 4 years ago, you watch, Alex Trebek's on, and then the past couple months, I mean, there's literally like a new person like Joe Buck, Aaron Rodgers, and just tons of guys and tons of different people, people from the news, different things like that. To me, I would kind of just rather see Jeopardy just kind of get like not be on TV anymore, or be replaced by if Alex Trebek has any kids.
So I don't know if he has kids or not, but that's really not how entertainment works. Like he might have kids, but they don't have the personality or the chops to carry a show. Like what Alex Trebek did, he made it look easy. It is not easy. It's not easy to get on there, hit your marks, have an IBF in your ear, talking, to producers, like, and engaging with guests and having millions of people love you. You can't just, it's not like my family roofing business. You can't just hand it down to the son who knows how to be like, you're running a multi-million-dollar like entity. So that's impossible. But in a way, didn't you say Mike Richards worked with the show for a long time? Like they kind of are keeping it in the family. I think that's there. The last thing I want to say on this is like, the Tonight Show went from, Carson to Leno, and then to the next Jimmy Fallon or whatever. Like you changed the host. The Daily Show went from Jon Stewart to Trevor Noah. A lot of people were like, the Daily Show is garbage. It'll never be the same. They're fine with it. The new person will get in. You might begrudge it a little bit, but eventually, like with these type of things, you move on. And some people don't. Like some people might feel you're the same way you do and be like, I'll never watch Jeopardy again. Like The Price is Right went from Bob Barker to Drew Carey. Like it will happen. Everything keeps going. I just think Jeopardy itself is now bigger than any host that it will ever have. Like, it just won't matter who the host is. Before we came for Trebek, we liked Trebek and the show. Now we will come for the show, for the trivia, for the competition, for the chance to gain a little knowledge. But it won't matter. Good luck, Mr. Richards. You've already got my buddy Jordan here saying, cancel it. Cancel the show.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting way to look at it. I'm going to say I'm not going to watch it, but I would kind of rather maybe have like if it is somebody who's going to do it, I want to, him being on the Jeopardy, scene and being a part of being part of the crew. I would rather it be somebody like that compared to a celebrity who's just going in there, for instance, like an Aaron Rodgers or a Joe Buck or something like that. But good luck to him and everything, being the new host of Jeopardy. Super, super big shoes to fill and stuff. And one final topic here. To me, this was very, very interesting. PepsiCo and Boston Beer announced there's going to be a Mountain Dew alcoholic drink. Now, I just recently turned 21, so I've never had alcohol before. I was intrigued, confused, and a whole lot of other things when I saw this. What are your kind of thoughts on this?
This is ridiculous. Mountain Dew, chill out. Like, when I was a kid, Mountain Dew was like a treat. You go out, you go to Hardee's or whatever. That's right, I said Hardee's. I'm from the East Coast, or Midwest anyway, and we have Hardee's, not Carl's Jr. Well, you go there, you get yourself like a Mountain Dew. I think they actually may have had Mellow Yellow. But anyway, you get the point. You get that yellowy drink. The Mountain Dew itself, like, they have done such a good job at branding. When I was like a bit younger, like when I was your age, they came out with these commercials where it was like, extreme. Mountain Dew's extreme. Like, are you kayaking? It's extreme. Their energy drinks. They got commercials with LeBron James. You think I'm supposed to think a guy who spends $5 million a year on his body, that he puts Mountain Dew inside of it? You can miss me with any of that nonsense. Mountain Dew doing this, it's just a logical step. They're marketing to all of the kids that have been taking in and that are obsessed with Mountain Dew, and now you can have it as a drink. Like, it's a perfect marketing scheme. It goes along with like vaping flavors, it kills you, whatever. More people are going to die from liver failure or alcohol poisoning or whatever else because they overload on Mountain Dew sugary drinks or whatever. I would say, being new to alcohol, do not let this be your, sort of whatever, your vessel into drinking alcohol. Like, if you're going to go with something that's been established, a little more reliable. This feels like something that could definitely catch and stick around. It's insane. I will never buy it. I won't. Let's not say never. Well, I hope I never buy it.
To me, this is just really interesting. I saw it. I was really confused. I thought it was like a fake headline at first, and the more I read into it, I believe they're gonna like start selling it early of next year. And the only thing I drink is Mountain Dew. So this, to me, it's like I don't think this is a good idea if I start drinking this.
Happy 21st birthday, my friend.
But to me, it's like this. I'm not totally for this. I'm not totally against it. But it's, marketing wise, I think it is genius. But at the same time, you're going to have kids working at the gas station trying to distract their coworkers while I try to go get a Mountain Dew alcoholic drink. Like, this has potential to be bad in a way. Like, there's going to be little kids drinking. They think they're drinking a Mountain Dew, but they're actually drinking alcohol. But to me, this is just very interesting. And now I'm kind of curious. Wonder if we're going to have like Pepsi or Coke or Dr. Pepper, or anything like Sprite. I feel like Sprite has potential to be a good one. But with Mountain Dew, like, I feel like this is just really, really crazy. Something I definitely did not expect to ever happen. But marketing wise, and just trying to get your name out there, trying branding, doing something different. I mean, you look at the people, who used to drink Mountain Dew when they're younger. They're eventually, older, and they're adults now who are able to, drink alcohol. But like, getting those type of people at that standpoint, I think it's, a really smart move, because you're going to have tons of, people who are like this idea. But this is just very interesting. I feel like I don't know. Me drinking literally like a 2 liter or 2 liters a day of Mountain Dew, drinking this, I don't think would be a good idea at all, because by the end of the week, I would probably be an alcoholic.
Oh, you definitely, if you were drinking 2 liters of this, you'd have a very short life. Already, you might want to think about less than 2 liter of Mountain Dew a day. That's a lot of Mountain Dew. So this is what booze companies are really good at. They will go into local bars and whatever else, and what they'll do is they'll do promotions where it's like, hey, get this vodka Mountain Dew drink. They'll come up with a kitschy name. They did the same thing with Red Bull or Rockstar and vodka. When I was younger and those drinks were coming out, like one of my favorite drinks, like when I would go out with my wife, we go dancing, is like, it's a long day at work. You get there, you want something that's going to like get your juices up a little bit. So you go ahead, you start the evening off with a vodka Red Bull, and it's like you get some energy, and all of a sudden the music starts to hit. It's like, boom, okay, I'm ready to go. They will find ways to not only promote it on TV or whatever they can do with fun commercials, and the people in the commercials will look really young too. I guarantee it. Although there is a rule that to audition for alcohol commercials, you have to be 25 years old, but they get young people. Or young-looking people, I will say. They will have this in bars and in clubs and in everywhere, where it's like, oh, have you tried this yet here? Like, you should get it with your vodka or your gin or whatever they find is the best mix to add those two things kind of together in some way. Or maybe Mountain Dew's a Pepsi product, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So eventually, if it works there, maybe you do like, try the new Pepsi rum or whatever, and it's a drink where it's like that. They figure out what matches the best. Try Sierra Mist and gin. Try Mountain Dew and vodka. Whatever the mixture is, they will. But it's a very calculated, smart move, because they've been very heavy in the commercial game for the last 20 years. And like you said, now you are coming into your age where you can drink. This is something that I can almost guarantee you will try at some point. Because if you like Mountain Dew that much, now they make it with a drink, and I'm going to watch a Bengals game. This could be bad, especially if they are 2-15, like that guy said. You might just be pounding alcoholic Mountain Dew. I'm going to have to check in on you and be like, Jordan, you still with us? How you doing, brother? You have a 2 liter of alcoholic Mountain Dew?
Yeah, that might not be the greatest idea, but, we kind of seem – them kind of branching out and doing different, things too. They kind of have like the Kickstart energy drink too. That to me, at the time that was, pretty big. As it got older, it's kind of like died down some. But this is very, very interesting. I will definitely have to think about possibly, drinking this maybe at some time. Definitely not if the Bengals go 2-15. That's probably not going to be a good idea though. But, this episode, it's been a lot of fun. We kind of talked about, the Michael Thomas situation, Lamar Jackson and Mayfield's possible extensions, the whole Deshaun Watson, deal with the Texans, top players to watch for in preseason, the new Jeopardy host, and me probably should not be drinking Mountain Dew alcohol because I could be an alcoholic. So, Tony, can you tell some of the listeners to follow you on social media?
Absolutely. Tony Tucker over at the Warzone Sports Network. We got daily content coming out over there. This evening, we will be doing our AFC West predictions. Just want to remind everybody to bolt up. Chargers going to be fire this season. But, yeah, we will be doing that tonight, I believe, around 5:30 over on the Warzone Sports Network.
Definitely make sure to put links in the description below. Make sure to go follow Tony. Make sure to follow me, the Sports 2 Hunt Show, on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. See you all next time on the Sports 2 Hunt Show.